So yeah, thanks for coming on. Happy to have you. Last time we talked, we argued a bunch.
That's true.
That's true.
And you know
So
what? I actually wanted to address that.
yeah,
Contemplated how I was gonna say.
yeah.
Basically, all right. Long story short, I was baked as fuck when I came on your show the first time, and me and my girlfriend, thankfully we're now married, but me and
Yeah,
my girlfriend were apart at the time, so I didn't have my PR manager with me to essentially just be like, Hunter, that's a really shitty idea.
fair enough.
Um, so yeah, we definitely had a very contentious last
Yeah.
conversation
I
last
gotta
time.
say, it's not as contentious as it's ever gotten on here. I have talked to people far worse. However, we definitely had major disagreements. But that's
And
okay.
I feel like, to be honest, even then, even though I no longer really stand by a lot of those positions I was arguing for,
Hmm.
I am not happy with the way that I tried to present my arguments that time
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
So
I don't blame you necessarily. They weren't necessarily. I've heard you be more cogent, especially in I don't know.
yeah.
I think you even did a little bit better when you talked to Vosh, and that's saying a
My
lot, I
debate with
think.
Vosh definitely went better because I was preparing a lot.
Yeah.
So,
What's the worst take I've heard from someone on here? That race mixing is risky. That's the worst take I've heard on here.
oh my.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about a lot of things. But I guess for those who haven't seen your video, and I did watch it, did you want to like preface anything, or did you just want to have like a discussion? Because this is kind of, I don't know. This is like usually people go the other way for the grift, and you are objectively going in the opposite direction that the money is saying you probably should go. If I'm honest,
Yeah.
do you agree?
Um, I agree and disagree only because on YouTube, I
Yeah.
feel like you can kind of make money doing either or, and it's much more about what gets you views.
Sure.
But I would also agree that yes, there's probably a lot more money to be made being a right-wing grifter.
Yeah. And I it's wild. It's wild to me that it doesn't happen more often, but I also understand it because again, the money thing. Um
Right.
I do you think that you would have come to these conclusions without the Vosh debate, without coming on here, without doing the other stuff? Do you think that was just an acceleration?
Hold on now, Jake. Don't be trying to take credit here for anything. Right?
Or I guess just talking to left people in general. I don't have to take credit. You did honestly. I will
Dude,
say
I'm
you
fucking with
you
you.
you did all the work. I say this to a lot of people. A lot of people are like, I have a big fan base that says like, I used to be a chud, and I just talking to you or consuming your content has helped me in a way, but like I always give those people credit because you did the hard work. Like, it can be fucking hard. It can be hard to be like, I'm dug in on this position and to go, you know what? Actually, I think I've been wrong for like a really long time on this. It takes
Yeah,
balls. And so like as much credit as you want to give to anybody, I personally think that anybody that makes a big change, they should take credit for it. I say that to
sure.
fans literally every day. I called someone. I said that today to Tasha, who might be in the crowd today. But
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, I would definitely say Vosh. Yeah, he
yeah.
he he did play a pretty significant role. Um, just kind of like what I explained in my video is how I was already kind of at a subconscious level questioning things.
Hmm.
Um, and then how having my arguments, especially when it came to like LGBT things, challenged in a way that I was pretty much unable to refute them. That definitely forced me to kind of keep consuming some of Vosh's content. And from there, that's pretty much it. I mean,
Yeah. It seems
there were
most
definitely
of it seems most of the stuff that you come around on are social issues.
that's yeah social issues right now because and the thing is that's what I've always prioritized on my channel, even when I was a right winger.
Right.
So I'm not as like I will be the first person to tell you that I'm not particularly educated when it comes to like economic
Sure.
things. So, the whole socialism versus capitalism debate,
Hmm.
I'm always interested in listening to those things, but they certainly don't interest me in the same way as like trans issues do, because trans issues is something that I've been sort of talking about for so long now.
Yeah. Obviously, as a the farthest right wing leftist that I've been coined that recently yesterday. Because I'm not quite I'm not full blown socialist. I'm not an anarchist, but I'm like, I hang out in those spaces a lot.
Right.
I will say that a lot of them would argue that the economic issues are social issues, but
Sure.
we don't necessarily have to talk about that. And I think, or we can in a little bit, but I'm interested in I guess like the specifics of when you say LGBT issues. I guess what do you mean by that? Like what was like the like, oh shit, that's where I'm wrong.
I'm not sure when I first realized it, but upon doing more and more research, it's so. Oh, sorry. If you hear my little kid in the background, that's
No, that's
she's just
okay.
saying hi.
She played an integral role in this, so it's fine.
There you go. But I'm trying to think. There wasn't really any like specific one argument that I heard that I was like, oh wow. But definitely listening to Vosh debate people on the issues,
Yeah.
LGBT issues, especially because some of the people he would debate would use very similar arguments that I would use, and then I would hear them get blown the fuck out, which would basically just encourage me to do my own research. And probably the biggest thing that it took for me to realize, for me to kind of come around on LGBT issues, is just the fact that gender and sex are different things. And now that I have come around to that, it's kind of, I'm almost embarrassed for people who still claim that like they're the same thing, because I think you're familiar with Suri's. I went on his show a little while ago. He sent me a really interesting source, and it was a paper written by a teacher talking about how like in the 60s and 70s they recognized the distinction between gender and sex. And that's probably the biggest thing where I'm like, okay, obviously sex and gender are different, and since gender is a social construct and malleable, there technically can be more than two genders. However, I would say that right now, for the most part, we socially recognize two, although I think we're getting closer to three because of non-binary people as well.
I think most people that argue on behalf of like, gender being a construct, which again, it does seem obvious, and I think at this point, since you had that aha moment, do you understand why people would get frustrated? Like, where they're just like, Siri, please listen. Like,
right. Well, to be honest, no one ever actually broke it down and explained it to me the way that Vosh did. And I'm not trying to come on here and just suck the guy's dick or something.
No, that's fine. He's a very good communicator, and that's part of it.
And he's really good at debate. And after I sort of had those ideas explained in a really like well-researched and concise way, that was really what persuaded me. Because before, when I would just hear like some like Tumblrina shouting that like gender is a social construct, it's not really too convincing to me, as opposed to actually hearing a really good argument.
This is a big thing on this channel as well, where I get a lot of people that like I got yelled at a few times for platforming you, right? And not as much as I would get if like I had a Nazi on or something, but like there are people that are like, look, this guy says transphobic shit. I'm like, I understand that, but like I don't know, you can reach people when you talk to them, and that's kind of the thesis of any time I talk to anybody that I tend to disagree with, is like, look, I'm probably going to at least be reasonable. And if I can be reasonable with somebody, worst case scenario, they go, that was a decent conversation. You know what I mean? Like,
right, exactly.
And I think we had a decent conversation, even though we got at each other a little bit. Like there was definitely, like, we have good discussions about it, and we talked about the Riley Dennis stuff, and we talked about like it's how it's harmful to misgender people and stuff like that. And it was just, and I think it was beneficial, whether or not that affected you at all, or because I've had this conversation with multiple people, and then going on to someone like Vosh, who is very good at explaining that kind of stuff. I think it's beneficial to talk to people, and I don't like the idea of like cutting people out. There's a lot. How many times did you get told it's not my job to educate you?
I mean, I know that's a pretty common one.
Yeah.
From people specifically.
And
on
it drives
Twitter
me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid.
Because
honestly.
I realize that it's not, and I understand that most people that are saying that are like already marginalized. They deal with it every day, and they're hearing you say something, and it pisses them off, and I get that. But at the same time, sometimes just reaching out to someone and being like really genuine and being like, hey, this is why it hurts my feelings, and like those are valid, and I don't know. I think it can be useful, and hopefully Whether or not you become a full blown lefty and you're Bernie bro, is kind of irrelevant. The fact that people are like changing their minds over things that they've been dug in on, and you have a monetary incentive to not do that. You could easily full grift, and it would be very lucrative for you.
But the thing is I just couldn't do that, and that's kind of
Right.
what I explained on my video as
Yeah.
well. Is like the purpose for creating my channel was always so I could voice my genuine opinions. Um, and I think like if I were to just kind of dive into the grift and be like, well, I don't really believe this shit about trans people anymore, but I'm just
Yeah.
gonna keep saying it because it makes me money. Like I would literally be dead inside because I can't keep that on forever. And also I'm much more content having positions, although they do like the majority of my audience disagrees with me right now on LGBT issues.
Mhm.
At least now I know that I hold a position on these issues that I can debate, and I can debate so well that I would also want to try like
Yeah, I
hope
think
to change someone's mind as well.
I agree. I think that I don't know. There's and are you religious? Did we talk about that before? I don't think you were, right?
I used to be religious.
Right, but there's like a skepticism to that I think for some reason in 2016 and 2015 there was like this shift of like these air quote skeptics, like Sargon and stuff, that went full blown right wing, and it was really weird. But it's nice to see it sort of like boomerang back. It's not just you that do it, but you're probably the most high profile at this point. That we're basing your content around, your politics.
Right.
I I think it's nice that you can apply that skepticism and be like, okay, so what if I am wrong, and just do that. And personally, I love the feeling of being like, oh shit, so that's what it is.
Right. And you
And
kind of want to like you kind of want to understand things better too. Like
yeah,
it's so much better, and that's why I mean, dealing with a lot of people on the right, and I always preface with just saying that I do know people still, obviously, who consider themselves conservative that
mhm.
I think are pretty decent people and rational people. But a lot of conservatives, especially the high profile ones on social media, are so fucking stupid. And it's really annoying too because it's very obvious that they sort of are just saying what needs to be said because that's what they've been told to
Oh
say.
yeah.
And I actually just had a discussion with a girl yesterday who is a big right winger. She's all in with like TPUSA,
Ugh.
and I actually met her at a TPUSA event almost 2 years ago now, when I was still like a huge right winger and everything. Um, and she'd been basically like repeatedly shitting on me for being in support of puberty blockers for trans kids.
Mhm.
And so yesterday, finally, I had the chance to talk to her just in a DM conversation. And I mean, I kept asking her and giving her like facts and information on it. And basically, it just boiled down to her being like, well, I have my opinion and you have yours. And I'm like, yeah, you have your opinion that's based on nothing but fear and feelings. Like,
Thank you.
it, yeah, it's really fucking
That's
annoying.
so huge to hear from. Oh man, it's hard to being on the left. A lot of it's like feelsies. You fees hurt, and it's like no,
Right.
dude. It's not about. It's about the fact that we understand that feelings are real and that people can be hurt by them, right? But we
Right.
also understand that it's not an emotional argument to say be decent to one another, and that's
Right.
pretty much it. I don't
Well,
know.
the thing is a lot of these conservative people, going back to the conversation I had with that girl yesterday, and I've had this similar conversation with another guy. The
Hmm.
worst of it is when they try to intertwine religious beliefs in with
Oh
their
yeah.
like social beliefs as well, because that's just when you go like full blown just moron. Because she was like, "Well, I don't think it's right. I think it goes against God to like change your genetics or something." I was like, okay, so is it against God for me to take fucking anxiety medicine? And she
Right.
was like, well, no. And I'm like, okay. So if you're basically, if you have a level of reasoning and you're applying it unequally to certain groups, then that is discrimination, right?
Yeah.
So if you hold the belief that to give kids puberty blockers when they're trans, that goes against God, but then to take depression medication or ADHD medication or anxiety medication, well, that's fine, then you're just against trans people. Like that's really
Yeah.
all it comes down to.
100%. Totally
Yeah.
agree with you, and that's a great argument. And they don't see it like that necessarily. And
It's a lot of fear mongering wrapped up in it too.
there's a
I mean,
lot.
Dude, this bitch literally fucking cited Steven Crowder
Oh
on
yeah.
why puberty blockers were bad. And I even told her, I was like, you do know that all the research that he showed was based on giving kids hormones, not putting kids on puberty blockers, right? But she was like, well, I'm not actually that educated on it. Maybe you should debate Crowder. I was like, okay.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can talk a bunch of shit, but then when we come face to face, you don't have any good
Steven
arguments.
Crowder would never debate anybody. Are you kidding? He's only interested in debating unprepared man on the street teenagers, like at a booth near a college. And when he gets owned, he fucking doesn't publish it. Like
Right.
he's awful. He's blocked me on Twitter. He's a coward. Um,
He's also just like a blatant liar.
oh yeah.
Like
Oh,
I've
huge
actually,
liar.
I don't think I've ever seen someone so blatantly just lie. Like
Ooh,
there
I
are
don't
some
know.
right
Dave
wingers.
Rubin exists.
See, to be honest, I don't really care for Ruben, but the thing is because I don't care for him, I don't really watch a lot of his content.
Yeah.
So I might be a little naive or oblivious. To me, like Steven Crowder is just blatantly a liar because he just doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I think of Blair White as someone who maybe isn't quite a liar, but she's like just so fucking stupid. She doesn't even realize when she says that so many things that are factually incorrect.
Let's talk. Yeah. Do you actually think she's genuinely stupid, or do you think there's a grift, or is it a component of both?
I think it's a little bit of a component of both because if you look, like Blair has only gone further right.
Oh yeah.
To the point that like she's just sounding like a demagogue now. Like she doesn't actually make any decent points. And it does kind of bother me that her videos get so many views and people are like, "Oh, Blair, she's the one good trans person." And it's just frustrating. I'm still not over the fact that a couple months ago she talked about that trans person getting let out of prison. And then she was like, you don't let people out of prison based on whether or not they reoffend. That's not how it works. And I was like, that is how it fucking works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we did that video on here, and yeah, that was a bad one.
Okay, cool.
That was a fucking terrible one.
Dude, me and my wife did like a little bit of research and then very quickly found that it was like, oh, they're not like just saying they're trans and being let out. It's the fact that they're on different hormones, which is lowering their sex drive, which decreases their chances of reoffending. That's what happened. Not, hey, I'm trans. And then they're like, oh, come on out of prison now.
Yeah.
Because that was the narrative for sure.
Yeah, 100%. She does this shit all the time. She is the most transphobic person, I think, that makes that kind of content. And it's so weird. And I know I don't know.
I mean, you know about her falsely accusing people of being pedophiles, right?
Oh yeah, she falsely accuses people constantly of that shit. Who does she falsely accuse?
And then she also falsely accused a mother of a trans child. It was almost 2 years ago now, but she still hasn't clarified anything on it, of course.
Oh yeah.
She falsely accused a woman of like abusing her child or forcing the child to be trans. Mm-hmm. But then if you actually did any fucking research, it's very obvious that the mom had even said, like, I wasn't even familiar with what it meant to be trans until I did research.
Right.
And basically Blair was trying to say because the mom was like a trans activist,
mm-hmm.
that meant that she was forcing the kid to be trans. However, the mom didn't become a trans activist until after the kid was transgender.
Exactly. And it's like
there's a lot of dishonesty, but Blair, yeah, I don't know if she's just, I think it's a mix of the fact that she's really stupid. There's a little bit of a grift there. And also she just doesn't research anything. Like she sees one tweet and she's like, oh my God, this is great for a video. And then just like sits down and talks for 10 minutes about it.
That is exactly how I imagined her choosing her topics. She goes, oh, this will get clicks. And then she does it. Like, I don't know. I just can't get to the point where I'm willing to just mine for that. It's like the quartering. Same shit. I don't know. Where it's just like 55 videos about fucking Brie Larson. I don't care, dude. But it makes some money, and I don't know fucking why. I just think people like to be reaffirmed a lot. I think that's what the most of the money is. They like to be like, oh, am I wrong about this? No, I'm not.
Right. And I think that I was kind of in that sort of circle for a long time too. I kind of talked about it briefly in the video, but there were definitely times I'd be researching even on LGBT issues, mm-hmm. and I would start to see some kind of compelling arguments or articles on that kind of went against what I was trying to say. And my first instinct, rather than actually reading it, would
Click
just be to
off.
kind of like click off of it and be
Yeah.
like, ah, fuck it, I know what I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna keep it at that.
Yeah.
And that honestly, like, I'm way more. It's funny because now that I've kind of had a shift in my beliefs, I'm way more open to debate because I feel like I've reasoned myself into these beliefs. Whereas before, I was actually a lot more afraid to debate because there was a part of me that was a little insecure in some of my beliefs, even still.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that it's kind of a meme on this channel as well, because I do put the feelers out and go, hey, if you want to talk about this, I would happily do it. Obviously, you've experienced this, and it could be a little, I guess, off-putting to people because it sounds like a debate me, bro. But I genuinely like the conversations. There are so many right wingers, especially the ones that are like actually like white supremacists, that are just like super afraid to explore any of their ideas and have them rebutted.
Right, and some of them are also scared because like they don't want the mask to come off.
Oh yeah, I literally talked to a Nazi today,
Oh, really?
and not on stream. I talked to them on Twitter, and they were like, "Well, why can't we have a white ethno state?" And I was like, "Well, here are the reasons." And then they're like, "You're just an asshole." It's like, well,
It's like, yeah.
address it.
I know. I hate that shit. I do. I hate when they just like just blow it off or call you an asshole or something.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally be being an asshole. That's fine, but I'm happy to apologize and repeat.
It's okay.
thing.
Come on,
like,
you can be an asshole to conservatives. It's not conservatives. Sorry, to neo Nazis or whatever you want or whatever they call themselves. What is it? Paleo conservative?
Oh yeah, or
like
Catholic capitalism, or literally Catholic capitalist, and there's just white nationalists. They just like white people.
I know. It's so annoying. Like these people like fucking Vincent James, who I'm actually going to be debating kind of soon on I think I'm going to be debating him on immigration.
Oof.
There's Vincent James, obviously, few inches. I know there's a couple other ones too that just call themselves paleo conservatives, and it's like, just shut the fuck up. You guys are like the biggest pussies ever. Just admit that you're a Nazi and move on.
So did you hang out in a lot of? Because I know you went to TPUSA, which isn't super big in the Nazi communities.
Right. I was never a Nazi.
Well, I know you weren't. I'm just saying, like, because of and Charlie Kirk is in charge of the TPUSA, right? Am I nuts? Is that the same thing?
Yeah. No,
or he's Turning Point. Yeah, Turning Point. So TP.
Yeah, TP.
Did any of those guys show up? Because I know Fuentes likes to poke at that, but like, did you ever end up like, oh shit, this guy's a Nazi, like in your group?
No, only because I wasn't really in Fuentes' like target until after I had attended one of the final TPUSA events that I went to. The last event that I went to, I spoke at the event called The Censored, and it was with Sargon. And then that was when I did the speech on how conservatives actually aren't being censored online.
Yeah, you got a lot.
And then I don't know. Yeah, and then Sargon came out and he literally he was like, you know what? I just want to skip my speech. We just got to do Q&A, because he was like so flabbergasted by the fact that I would dare to like say that conservatives aren't really being disproportionately censored.
Sargon is he's a piece of fucking work.
Yeah,
I've had my interactions with him. He is not a bright fella. He sounds smart, but he is not, and it's weird.
He he does sound kind of smart, and I guess like Sargon, I don't know if I would not call the guy a Nazi, but he's certainly a white nationalist. Yes. He's certainly a white nationalist.
I think he is. I think he is knocking on the door, and kind of like me with anarchism, he's just not willing to take the step towards authoritarian fascism that is needed. But he is like right there. He is so close, and there's a wild. I had him on my fucking show.
Oh, you did?
I had him on my show in like 2015 or 14. And it wasn't that bad. He was just like...
He got worse.
Oh, fucking yeah, he got worse. He was just at the time I had him on, he was concerned about the Muslim population in the UK spreading fundamental Islam. And I was like, well, I kind of disagree with you because I'm a lefty and fine with immigration. But like, I don't live there, and so I'm going to give you a pass because I don't know what it's like. And then it just went full-blown fucking white nationalist. It's nuts.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I used to watch back in like 2016 when I was big into the whole anti-feminist stuff. And so, Yeah, he's definitely gotten worse, and it was really obvious because I watched his second debate with Vosh as well, and that was really the nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Oh man, Sargon got absolutely fucking obliterated,
Yeah.
and I mean, I've debated Sargon at that event on the censorship thing, and I I just have not heard really any compelling arguments. The only thing conservatives really have with that are like anecdotes where they're like, this person got banned and then this person got banned. And I'm like, okay, people get banned from social media all the
Yeah.
time. Sorry that you can't say that like we should put black people back in chains and
Right.
like
This
on
is what
Twitter.
it's always a TOS violation. It's never actual censorship. It's not like they're going like, I think that we should have privatized healthcare, and then the ban hammer comes down. It's like,
Right, exactly. It's never like that.
it's not
And
policy. It's rhetoric.
it's even like, I mean, even like Red Ice TV got banned, right? And people are like, a good conservative channel
Oh,
taken
Red
away.
Ice TV,
And I'm
literal
like,
Nazis.
come on, these guys are fucking neo-Nazis, dude. Like,
Yeah.
and you know what? I still try to be really careful with that terminology
I know,
because
right?
I do think that the left is a little too liberal with throwing around the neo-Nazi term.
I think there was a period of time where I would agree with you. I think now
It's gotten a little better. It's
Yeah.
gotten better, but it's sort of muddied the waters a little bit in the sense that now anytime I try to be like, hey, this person's the neo-Nazi, guys.
Yeah.
Then I get bombarded with like, oh, you just call everyone a neo-Nazi.
Well, yeah,
now.
that fan base is gonna be still stuck on that shit for a long time.
Right.
But I kind of hope they take a little ride with you and hear you out, because
A lot of people are, you know,
that's really good. Even though you're a dirty fucking centrist, I'm still
now.
Honestly though, I would, as long as you're willing to like test your beliefs, if you end up in a place that I disagree with, that's fine. But if you're living in reality, I can deal with you. It's the people that are just like the people that are like, Donald Trump is a well-reasoned person. It's like, what?
Or the people who believe in Q.
He made a fucking, oh my god. The person I was talking to, I looked down their timeline and they had a thing where Donald Trump had moved his hand in a roughly Q-shaped thing while he was, because he gesticulates a lot, and they're like, oh, look, it's a sign to Q. Keep going, QAnon, let's do it. Like the deep state.
Yeah, I actually had a conversation with someone. I'm not going to say who, but it's someone who's in my family. But it was not my mom or dad, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
And they had actually sent me like this Q thing. It was the video Q plan to save the world. And I called them up and we had like a pretty interesting conversation. And I was just, the thing is it was so, the Q stuff specifically is so dumb. You can easily like debunk it by just asking questions. I was like, okay, so why is Donald Trump not an elite? Because he fits every single definition of like how Q defines an elite that'd be part of the deep state. And then even more so, I was trying to communicate to the person. I was like, look, I don't think that you're a neo-Nazi. I don't think you are. But once you believe that there's the shadowy sort of cabal in the background pulling the strings, all it takes is for you to say, they're Jews. And then you're a neo-Nazi. Yeah. Like, it's literally one step away.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about conspiracy theories and Q, and it's weird that I don't know what about right-wing beliefs, maybe you can illuminate this, leads people to these things. But there's like the popularity of things like this, or like, Brain Force and InfoWars, and like, how does that latch on to what is it about that stuff that is appealing and seems to almost solely target right-wing people?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably a little bit of correlation in the sense that like people who are right-wing also tend to be a little more paranoid sometimes, so maybe they're easier to dupe for that kind of stuff. I also think it comes from like, and don't get me wrong, I think it's good to have a healthy skepticism of like the mainstream media for sure. And I do think that the mainstream media has really been biased.
You won't find a left-leaning person in my group that says that the news is good.
Right,
we
exactly.
don't like this narrative that we watch like CNN is bullshit, by the way.
Right. I think it comes from like a deeper distrust, not only of like certain things in the media, but like academic fields as well. Like, have you ever heard?
The
I'm sure.
anti-intellectualism is so strange.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't understand it at all. I'm like, what did I say? I'm trying to think. I cited like World Health Organization at one point on like trans issues, and someone was like, World Health Organization, didn't they abandon people in China or something? It's like, guys, not every like academic field is evil or like I don't know. And if you're not going to believe the academic field, then what do you believe?
Right. This is what I was talking about living in the same reality. There's a lack of trust and consensus about like experts in a field, whatever that field may be. Flat Earth is a great example. Like,
oh yeah,
like that's almost a solely right wing thing. It's not 100%, but like for some reason, there's a lot of right wing people that are like, Earth is flat. Anti-vax seems to span it. That's a little horseshoey. I think if you're super far left, anti-vax is also a thing.
Oh really?
Yeah, I find it in like hippie healing crystal spiritual
that's
people
right.
as well.
But essential oil.
But I will say that the right obviously has a lot of that as well. I think it's like a libertarian thing, which is weird because a lot of left people are libertarian.
I did a video on anti-vaxxers a while ago, and I lost a pretty good chunk of my, well, not that much, but I lost some fans, got a lot of dislikes. I was like, are we serious? Now, granted, I was extremely harsh. Like, I called people who are anti-vaxxers like brain dead Neanderthals or something. But
I mean, they're gonna be when fucking Ebola melts their brain.
It's like, yeah, you got polio, but at least you don't have autism.
Like, Jesus Christ. As if autism is this horrible thing. Most people are on the spectrum a little bit. Like, calm down. Like, it's not like we're talking about non-functioning, super hardcore autism. And even if we were, people with autism are fine. They're people.
And
way better than having polio.
Cause autism.
Right. Even if they did, though, I would rather live in a sea of autistic people than a sea of, because I can't catch that. Right. Like
right.
all you are.
Did you see the
is a little bit quirky at that point. No, go ahead.
Right. I was just gonna say, did you see the Candace Owens tweet where like everyone was voting no that they wouldn't get the vaccine for corona?
Of course, I did see that. Like, God. She is arguably one of the most tokenized and worst of those people. It just drives me fucking nuts.
I saw a clip today of her actually talking about Native American, where she was saying that they were cannibalizing each other, and it wasn't until the white man. She literally said it wasn't until the white man came in and sort of enforced a moral code that like you saw that stop happening or something like that. I was like, oh God, that's a hot take. Right?
Jesus Christ! These people need to read a fucking history book. It's wild.
The thing is, I was never really like far right when it came to race issues, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I elaborated a little bit in the Vosh podcast. The closest I ever got was on like issues like Islam, where I would say stuff like Islam can't exist. Excuse me. Or I would say Islam can't exist in like Western culture or something, which I now realize is a little dog whistly for sure. But I was never to the point where I would be like thinking that like whites were superior, or that they should be a white only country. And even back in 2018, when I was still like super fucking right, I was actually getting shit on, not nearly as much now, but I was getting shit on a little bit by other people on the alt-right who were mad that I would call like neo-Nazi ideology disgusting even then. I think that I just didn't realize how prevalent those sort of that sort of mindset was on the right. And now that I'm sort of familiar with the dog whistles and the way that neo-Nazis communicate, it's become more and more prevalent. I mean, I even saw a tweet the other day about me that was like, they were like, is Hunter a censored or something? It's like, obviously I know what you guys are fucking saying right now.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of sad.
I don't even know. There's no historical basis for the Jewish conspiracy shit that comes out. It's really weird. I don't know.
Oh, I know.
I don't even know why they're on that stuff. I just don't even know what's the appeal. I don't, just scapegoating?
I guess because it's like the Jews are trying to wipe out the white race, even though Jews generally look white.
Right. Like,
so
I don't think Ethan and Gila's baby is going to be like not considered a white person just because she's from Israel.
Right. Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. And there are historical reasons for why there is sometimes a disproportionate amount of Jews in certain fields as well.
Well, sure, yeah,
Because
absolutely. But the same thing is like Indian doctors. It's because there's an incentivized
right.
situation where there's a little bit of a diaspora. There's people moving from a specific place. Happens to be that World War II existed. Oh, shocker! And they were they were already being persecuted. So yeah, you're gonna have a movement of this population of people
Right.
that have some sort of demographic similarity with one another, and so it's going to feel like I don't know. We're just so wildly, we are so prone as a human race to other people. It's really sad, and
It is sad. And it's just strange that like yeah, what's the appeal with like blaming the Jews? It's all really stupid
I think
shit,
if you
honestly.
blame, the same thing with, and I don't know if you're still a Trump supporter or not. It doesn't really matter, but the rhetoric around like Mexicans and stuff like that. Like if you can scapegoat a group, it seems to be
Mhm.
very effective in absolving you of responsibility for the bad things that happen
Mhm.
rather
It almost like
than
tries to justify it.
yeah. And so I don't know, it happens a lot. I mean, we've done it throughout American history, literally the whole time. It
Right.
was Native Americans, then it was Japanese people, and it's been
Blacks.
black people, obviously, ton Mexican people, Jews, Irish, it's Catholics. It's never ended. It's sad.
It is sad. Yeah, no, it absolutely is. I actually had a really interesting conversation with a friend yesterday about race abolitionism. Because I've like publicly advocated to abolish race,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a really close friend, and he wasn't. I mean, I know the guy really well. I know that he's not like a fucking white nationalist or a neo-Nazi or something.
Yeah.
Um, but we were just kind of discussing it, and I have you ever heard a good argument in favor of not abolishing?
No, it doesn't really make sense. It's the the argument always is like, well, our heritage and our culture and
Yeah,
traditional
yeah, the culture
values,
thing,
and it's like
right? The culture.
it's
It's like
dog whistling.
race is not connected to culture. It's
Nope.
correlated with it, sure, but it's not like you're not born black and then
Right,
well, I mean
exactly.
that's literally what neo-Nazis think. It's like you're born black, so that means that you're genetically more likely to go commit crime and rape the white women or whatever.
This may be a silly thing, but hear me out. There is I watch a lot of documentaries on stuff, and I really like cooking documentaries and travel stuff like that.
Hmm.
And there was one where they were talking about just tacos al pastor. I know this sounds stupid, but bear with me. And so this very famous Mexican dish, which is a roasted meat on a spit, and it turns and it's heated on all sides and cut and then put into tacos. That is a Turkish food, but is a Mexican installation, and so it
Mm.
is tacos al pastor is considered this like Mexican by both race and culture food. But if you move it across the sea and you take the same exact technology, the same cuts of meat, and you put it in a fucking pita, it's Turkish. And it's wild to me that like something as integral as like literally the national dish of a place
Right.
can it's literally just the color of the people making it and what they look
Hmm.
like and their language that determines what it is. And I
Exactly.
know it's just food in this scenario, but like that's what culture is. We literally melt together. Do people think like that like I don't know, cheeseburgers and stuff like don't have like a Polish influence or hot dogs or
Right.
all these things you think are American fucking
Hmm.
horses or like I don't know.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
just wild to me. There's
It doesn't
no
make a lot of sense at
there's
all.
no
And
appreciation for our history.
sure. I have a question for you. This is
Sure.
kind of on this subject. Um, what's your opinion on the concept because we might actually disagree on this.
Oh, cool.
Um, what's your opinions on cultural appropriation? Because I
Mm,
believe that it's possible, right, to like
sure.
offensively depict someone's culture for
Hmm.
sure. However, the times that I've only ever seen people like bitching on Twitter, I've never actually thought it was legitimately cultural
I
appropriation.
will say that the people that bitch about cultural appropriation are a minority in lefty spaces,
Okay.
but it could definitely happen. I don't think that someone like a white guy with dreads is necessarily a bad person, right? I don't think it has any real bearing on on their views or their advocacy for whatever, and I don't think it. But there, stuff like Cinco de Mayo where you're wearing big mustaches and sombreros and shit. I understand how that could be taken
I
offensive.
can, yeah, because
Or
I can understand that. I was thinking more like
it's almost more
you remember?
caricatures rather than actual
Right.
representation.
Right. And I do understand that, but like, do you remember on Twitter when everyone had a meltdown over wearing the dress from China? Oh, you don't? Okay, yeah. Back in 2018, I actually did a video talking about cultural appropriation. And it was stemmed from that video, basically. Everyone was like freaking the fuck out that this white girl, wore a Chinese dress, like a Chinese style dress.
Like a kimono?
Not even. It was like inspired. I don't even remember, but it looked like it was obviously like a culturally looking Chinese dress.
Sure.
She wore it to prom, and I was like, "Oh, right." Everyone got mad, but then everyone got mad at the people who got mad. It was just typical Twitter shit, right? I was like, "Oh, right. How dare someone in America wear a product from China?" Like, that's kind of an example to me where there was nothing disrespectful about what she was doing.
Yeah. Okay, so
if she was like, "Oh, I'm dressing up as a Chinese," and like carrying a big bowl of rice or something, then that's a caricature and that's kind of rude. But I haven't really ever seen, like, anytime I see people complaining about cultural appropriation, I look at it and I'm like, really? Does anyone give a fuck?
It's really contextual, and it does happen, but it's like, I think people misunderstand, much like the term toxic masculinity. I think people misunderstand what cultural appropriation actually is, and they misidentify it. And it's almost always white liberals doing it on behalf of people of color. Almost always. And this is a problem that a lot of us hate. Where
the libbies,
the goddamn libs. It's never someone that's, we use the term woke, but I mean, like, if you're going to use it without and remove all the stank from that term and just be like, okay, what is woke? Which is not a term we ever really use, but someone that's like socially conscious and actually kind of like lives in these spaces and understands the conversations. It's almost never these people. Almost never.
Right.
It's almost always a liberal white woman trying to, like, prostrate
get
herself
offended on someone
and sort of. There's this girl on Twitter that I play D&D, and it's a pretty popular hobby right now, and we do a stream for it. But there's this girl that's like, she's a white liberal girl, cis and not, straight and all this stuff. And she's like, if you don't have a person of color on your D&D stream, you should get rid of one of the players and invite a person of color on there, or I'm not watching your shit. And it's like, okay, so I totally understand where you're coming from. Black representation or whatever, or, people of color representation in general. She was talking about black people in this case, but, like, that's important. I understand that representation is important. Maybe you disagree about representation. We can talk about that. But forced representation is like
cringy.
is you're literally tokenizing people
exactly
for the
I was
sake,
just thinking
right, for the sake of things. So there's a difference between, like, Black Panther, where it is like a celebration of black culture in a superhero movie. It's never happened before. It was a big deal, and a lot of people, if you talk to them about their experience, they're like, this is the first time I've seen myself represented in a way that wasn't like a black comedy. It wasn't like, we were celebrated, we were superheroes, and it was cool, and it was big, and not Blade is like filled with white people. This is a black movie, and, like, I totally understood it, because that's a big deal. But, like, just saying, like, hey, you're a black, you come play D&D, and they're like, well, I don't really want to, because I have obviously we all have, like, multiracial friends from all over. It's America. I have friends that are black that are, like, sort of interested in it, but not interested enough to play weekly with us. It's like, I'm not gonna force you because you don't want to play with your nerdy white friends about
that.
This
literally
shit.
is like tokenizing black people.
Exactly. And so this kind of goes into the conversation with cultural appropriation, where it's like, there is a line that you shouldn't cross. It shouldn't be to the point where, or you hear this with like, feminist men who prostrate themselves to women and are like, whatever you say, ma'am, you are correct. Like, you can be too fucking, like, acquiescent towards.
You don't want to be like a pushover, right?
Right. And on the internet, people, they're just a cuck and a simp or whatever. But if you don't hand wave it and you actually talk about the problem, it's fucking racist and sexist. Like, you're doing the thing just in a nice way. It's not better. It really irritates these people. My girlfriend's talked about this in the past, where it's just like that sort of like nice guy feminist, where it's just like, I agree with your core values probably, but the way that
Right.
you do this is gross. You are literally like, because of my gender, you are treating me in a way. No, you should be treated how you treat everybody, and your gender
Right.
is part of the experience of interfacing with that person.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that kind of shit. So I
I
would
agree. I mean,
say,
I
yeah,
I think it can be really patronizing for sure.
incredibly. But at the same time, when usually this comes up, it'll be like something like Steven Crowder, where he goes, "Oh, me so honey," and it's like, dude, that's fucked up. Like
Right.
you are being making racist caricatures, and understand that if people get upset at you, they are valid, and I totally fine with, if you want to continue to be racist, you can do that. It's part of your
Mhm.
free speech and it's good. But like, don't pretend like you think it's not. Just lean into it.
Right.
Just admit it. Be like, yeah, I'm being a little racist, but I kind of like that part about this comedy. Okay, fine. That's gonna be
Right.
distasteful for a lot of people, but like, don't be a pussy about it. I don't know. Just like
Right.
be face forward with your bullshit.
Exactly. That's why it gets so annoying with the people calling them paleo conservatives.
Yeah. Paleo
Yeah.
concern. What's paleo about white nationalism?
I literally don't even know what.
I
It
don't
was
know.
interesting you brought up the subject of representation.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about
And
that?
I mean, I'm fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of like what you just said. Like, I believe that it should be done in a tasteful way. Something that kind of annoys me, and see, people obviously look at my channel and they're like, Hunter's still just making anti-feminist content.
Sure.
But a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is actually, I make sure to clarify the difference between legitimate feminism versus like pop feminism and kind of what it's become
Sure.
today.
How do you feel? Wait, how do
Um,
you feel about the word feminism in regards to yourself?
uh, um,
This is a tough one.
I'm yeah, this is kind of a tough one. I would not personally, I would not call myself a feminist only
Sure.
because what that word now means
Mm-hmm.
and the type of people it's usually associated with uh doesn't, in my opinion, reflect what it's supposed to actually be about.
Okay. So you're
Um
gonna go with the egalitarian thing.
I would probably go with the
Yeah.
egalitarian cop.
Yeah. That's fine.
But
You can
then
cop out, but that's okay.
But as far as the representation stuff goes, like, I think that it's really important to have like trans people, black people, gay people, like minority groups, featured in a good way in film, because that kind of normalizes those things. Like, I don't want it to
Yes.
be taboo that it's like, oh, there's a trans person on screen. And it's interesting because I've kind of had this conversation with my mom a little bit. I've been having some really good conversations with my mom. I'm trying to get her to come around. I love my mom. Listen, I love my mom. She's a very loving and caring person. She's a literally like, no, yeah, obviously I'm not shit talking my mom on a podcast, but we've definitely had some interesting conversations. And
Yeah.
every now and then she'll kind of talk about how like they showed a gay couple in like
Hmm.
one of the shows that my younger siblings watch. And I've sort of challenged her on that. I'm like, well, what's the big deal? Like, you see straight people on there all the time. Being gay, there's nothing wrong with it. And the more you see it, the more you kind of grow up around it. Of course, as long as it's appropriate, right? Like,
Yeah.
then
Sure.
it should be, that's how we kind of normalize it.
Right. Like, I think we
So,
have a lot of heterosexual sexual content in modern day media, even at the PG rating, that
mhm,
that if they did that in same sex couples, there'd be a lot of outrage from
right.
that group of people, and it's like,
And what
I find
bothers
that
me though with
hypocritical.
what bothers me with the whole representation thing though, on the flip side, well, there's two things. One, I find it so fucking annoying that there are like conservative YouTubers that are like, oh, the movie went woke because it had a black person in it or something.
Sure.
It's like,
Yeah.
shut the but also it does annoy me that some of these movies, a lot of the like quote feminist movies that I'll like pick apart and critique on my channel,
Hmm.
they're like just bad movies or just regular ass movies, right? And because they have a woman in it, it's like, oh, this is a feminist statement. It's like, it's not a feminist statement to just have a woman in a movie, in my opinion. Maybe you disagree with me there. Um,
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily think feminism equals being depicted as a woman necessarily. I mean, you could have a
right.
feminist movie and it's all dudes, it would probably be shit. But like, like I think representation. You always hear that. Well, if it's the best person for the job thing, and it's like Brie Larson was the best person for Captain Marvel, and I like it's a fine movie. It's not like the best Marvel movie of all time, but it's not like this. If you watch the movie, it's not this hardcore feminist thing. She has one
No.
scene where there's a guy sexually harassing her, and she has superpowers, and she deals with him. Like,
Right.
that's fine. I think that's fine. It's as milquetoast Disney bullshit as their, oh, we have our first gay character, and Captain America talks to a guy who's vaguely gay. Like,
Right, exactly.
it's corporate wokeness. This isn't real. Like, if you want a real movie about like gay issues or something, they have those. It's not going to
Right.
be your Marvel movies. That said, in a Marvel movie, having an openly gay character that is one of the main characters, not just a side thing, would be very beneficial. Again, like you said, exposure to these things for everybody, it helps strip away prejudice, and that's fine.
And it helps normalize it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Normalization is the biggest and best word to describe that, and I'm so glad you use that term because it's a thing that we on over here on the left talk about a lot, where you have to normalize these sort of like, seeing a trans person and realizing that they're just a normal person is really important.
right. And I completely agree with that. And that's why, I mean, you can already tell that that's happened too. Like back in Star Trek days, it was a big deal that they had like a black and white kiss or something.
Yeah.
And now if you saw a movie about a black and a white person dating, like you would not think twice about it unless you're like a fucking paleo conservative.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. And it's like,
Right.
representation, I think, is one of the things that I think we do best at, because you're gonna go watch the movies, especially when they're these big blockbuster things, as long as you do it right, and it's not like,
But believe me, I've seen them do it wrong.
Yeah,
I went over that movie Black Christmas that was remade,
I didn't
and
see that one.
it was completely like feminist, like I don't want to say propaganda, but it was like the cringiest pop feminist sort of like every man was like that stereotypical sort of like sexist bigot, and then like literally the movie ended with like this cult of super sexists trying to like take down the women or something. Like it was really fucking cringy.
Huh.
And I watched a lot of those movies with my wife as well, because she's always been a little more left leaning than I am. So usually I like to watch it with her and get her perspective. And she was on the exact same page as me. She was like, "This is complete bullshit. It's so patronizing. It's so cheesy."
Yeah, I think patronizing, that happens a lot when people are trying to really go hard.
I wish that they would
that
just
kind of
put
shit.
them in the movie and then just like not say anything about it. Like,
I mean, even
remember,
if you do say anything, the messaging has to be effective. It can't be
right?
I
Like
don't know.
even Onward, like Pixar. Remember Pixar had the gay character Onward, and like
Did I see Onward?
I just recently watched it, and they had a gay character, and of course all the conservatives were all mad. They're like, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
woke," kind of thing, and then I watched it, and literally, I kid you not, it was less than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like the police officer was like, "Yeah, I need to get home to my girlfriend," and then like that was it.
Yeah.
Literally, that was it. I was like, "This is what everyone was bitching about on Twitter, guys. Come
Yeah.
on."
Yeah, that's bullshit. And it's not even like good representation, by the way. That's another example of Disney being like, "See, we have a gay character." Like, no, you don't. You
Right,
don't
like they're
have-
just doing it
you
for
have-
they're doing it for the money, and it's
you have a
obvious they
gay
cut the
NPC in
China.
a video game. Like,
right. Exactly.
like one line. That's not a character. They're not well rounded. I don't know. That's silly. But yeah.
Well, it's literally, I've said this before in my videos on like feminist, when movies try to do like that pandering pop feminist crappy shit. It's the same thing with like gay people. Like, make a good movie, right? Make a good story that features gay people in it, and it can even be about like the fact that you're gay. That's fine. But when it's like you just throw these side characters in, you're like, "Hey, look, that guy's gay." Or when it's like just about the women and then getting chased by like the sexists, there's totally a right way to do it. I've seen it done right, and I've seen it done wrong.
There's something to say for how fucked up it is that you are truly represented in America when bad movies start coming out about you, and it's not bad because it's about whatever it's just a bad shitty movie. Like
Right.
here's a bad gay buddy cop movie. Like it's just bad and schlock, and
Right.
it's just totally cynical sort of like money grab effort without it
Right.
being about your representation. That's when you're truly represented. When you're being exploited, that's
money.
That's arguably when you've made equality, and it's fucked
Right.
up. But I mean, like that's kind of how it works. I guess on that note, how do you feel? You said you're not full lefty. Let's I guess let's talk about the election. Are you going Trump? Are you feeling Biden? Are you going to abstain? Like what about voting issues? I guess. What do you got?
I'm really, to be honest, I'm torn on because I'm not the biggest fan of Trump anymore. And I haven't been too public about that just because I know if my fan base for that, they'd probably be kind of mad also.
Well, they're not going to come here and watch this, so it's fine.
From my perspective, to be honest, I just feel let down by Trump because I did vote for Trump in 2016. And I feel let down by him. I feel like he's all talk and it's very much about like looking good. Like when he's all like, oh, the unemployment's down. Look what I did. But it's like, what policy did Trump do to make that happen? Nothing. He just got into the office on the right time. And so that's been kind of a letdown. Biden, I fucking hate Biden too, because like he can't even form a single coherent sentence. I'm like, do I really want this guy like running the country? But then not voting is also like a pussy move in my opinion, because then I'm just sitting here like, what? I can't complain. I didn't vote. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't like the idea of abstaining. And this is where me and my viewers sometimes disagree. I'm a Bernie supporter.
Of course.
I mean, he's got good policies, but
Bernie, honestly, he got some cool shit. I was low key hoping to see Bernie get
so okay. So this is interesting to me. How can you be a fan of Bernie and also be like, I don't know, maybe Trump? Where's the bridge?
The only reason that I'm even still considering voting for Trump is literally because the alternative is also so bad in my opinion.
See, okay, so
if it were Trump versus Bernie, then I might go for Bernie.
Well, I feel like any person that cares about literally any other one person should probably pick Bernie in that scenario.
Because I do think it's a problem that like what is it, like 4 people like have the majority of the wealth of the country, like
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about
that. Let's talk about that. No, this is interesting because of your social politics that are coming around. The Existence of Billionaires is a really good conversation to have. Now, on the one hand, and by the way, full disclosure, I'm not a full-blown lefty. I get yelled at from time to time by being like, I don't want to necessarily seize the means of every production. But at the same time, workers in Amazon get fucked, and they should have a larger share of the profits because that's what makes the business so profitable, is that work, that literal labor. And so, and I don't think Jeff Bezos provides the value that he is receiving at all. So,
are you kidding me? But Amazon employees are
right.
Shit.
And so, I'm wondering how much redistribution are you comfortable with?
Oh shit!
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pointed question that I have not put nearly enough thought on, and I'd be an idiot to try to answer it.
Sure. Okay, so okay. Well, I guess.
What do you? Well, hold on. Can I ask you something? Really quick? What do you mean by redistribution? Do you mean like pay more taxes, or do you mean like we're gonna literally just like dip into your bank account? I don't know. Like again, I know I'm probably sounding really.
No. That's fine. I understand. So when I talk about redistribution, and when I think most left-leaning people that talk about it, we're not talking like I don't want to be cut a check. I mean, I'm comfortably middle class anyway. I'm probably not going to even be a beneficiary of most of this stuff besides like a healthcare thing. But like there is, I mean, you said it. There's obvious incompatibilities with our current system versus like I guess the wealth distribution. The bottom is really, really at the bottom. And there's a lot of people that if they break their arm, that's it. That's their life. They're fucked.
Right.
And
Oh,
it's
well, see, I agree with you there.
yeah,
I agree that it's a problem that people in the wealthiest country in the world are too scared to go to the doctor. I mean,
yeah.
my sister actually, she had a blood clot in her leg, and she even told me, she was like, "Yep, I was going through the process. Then they were running an X-ray, and all I could think about was how much is this going to cost me?"
Yeah, and I mean,
And
you
that's
had a
fucked up.
baby, and you have a second one on the way. Congratulations! And
Thanks.
that's not fucking cheap, man. That's not cheap at all. How?
I know, and like it's what that's honestly that disgusts me, and that was probably the biggest thing I agreed with Bernie Sanders on,
Mhm.
because I do think some of the redistributive kind of talk can get into some pretty dicey territory. Um, I would be okay for obviously raising like taxes on wealthier people. I don't.
That's
I
what we're
think that
talking about.
well, yeah, I think that giving wealthy people tax breaks doesn't make any fucking
No,
sense.
there's no trickle down.
Um,
It doesn't work.
Right. And the fact that the middle class is shrinking is a serious problem as well. People are
Hmm.
either getting richer and richer, poorer and poorer, and there's no really middle ground. Um, the biggest problem though that Bernie touched on that I was really resonated with me was the Medicare for all thing,
Yeah.
because I find it really like it actually would make me like get super pissed off because I'd be talking to like my about it or whatever. The fact that like the pharmaceutical companies or like medical hospital or medical companies are treated like a business. Like,
Oh
how
yeah.
can we make the most money off the fact that people have cancer or suffering or dying? Like,
Suffering is
it's really
literally a
disgusting.
commodity.
It's really disgusting to me.
Yeah. Or I
It
guess
really
the
pisses me
relief.
off.
Um.
And
And
that's the thing is, see, I'm pro liberty, right? Like that's kind of my biggest thing right now is just
mhm.
like liberty all the way. I'm all about freedom.
Yep.
Um, and
By the way,
I almost want to say,
lots of people on the left are too, buddy.
oh boy, well,
I'm bottom left. I mean, you can see on my Twitter. I know you're banned, but you might have a sock account or something that no one knows about.
I do.
There's a I mean, I'm almost all the way to the libertarian, and then I'm just to the left. Like that's because I I recognize that there are spaces where the government should exist. Like again, in Medicare, there's no reason that we are in the richest country in the world that says like, oh, we're the best in the world, and we don't provide for our people. And if you're a capitalist even and not a lefty, wouldn't you? And labor is the most important commodity in a capitalist system. Wouldn't you want labor to be at its healthiest to produce the most? And
Right.
as far as wages are concerned, wouldn't you want consumers to have enough money to buy things to perpetuate the capitalist system? So wouldn't you want minimum wage to rise roughly with, you know, the GDP and the output and you know the cost of living and stuff like that? You would want these people to remain competitive, and you would want to raise the bottom up enough to continue the top rising too. The
Right.
top is going to go with the bottom. It's only going to push everything up, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't make any sense, even from a
It even
capitalist
makes
perspective, to be against this kind of stuff.
That's actually a really good point. You know, I have not even thought of it that way. I also think Medicare for all makes sense as far as like a tradition, even from like a traditional standpoint. Like,
Sure.
hey, more people can have babies,
Well,
more
there you
people get
go.
like there. There's literally, I feel like there's arguments to be made no matter where you actually sit on the political spectrum. But my question is, and I've sort of talked to Vosh briefly about this,
Hmm.
but I've also, and again, I am aware these are just anecdotes,
Yeah, sure.
but I have heard some horror stories about Medicare for all as well. People like, oh, I broke my leg and I had to wait like 3 days because the hospitals were too full, or or like the government chose to not continue treating like this sick boy. There was a story about that I read once that really kind of like
Yeah.
pretty
Again, most
upset.
of these are only anecdotal, of course, but
Of course, I mean, of course, but
yeah.
like, does that happen? I guess it could happen the same way. And like, oh, here's sick and then can't afford healthcare. I get that, but
Good call, baby
I don't
boy.
know. I mean, how would there be any kind of private healthcare as well, or would you have to do away with it in order to put
Personally,
in America?
I am personally, and here's what I think Bernie Sanders is doing. I think he went to the table saying no private option, so he could be like, okay, well, I'll acquiesce and give you a private option, so he could get it passed through any Republican roadblock.
Mhm.
I think that was a strategy, but you can't say that out loud, obviously. Personally, I'm fine with a private option as long as the very bare minimum is the standard of care that you get with public option. And I think I don't know why you would choose a private option at any point except to expedite the process or get elective things. But even so, I mean, I can't think of an ethical problem as long as they have access equally. Like if you choose private healthcare, you're not boxed out, but you're still paying the tax for it. Like you're not exempt from public healthcare. You're still doing it. Like it'd be something that you gain as an extra, which I'm fine with.
So it's almost like if there's a Medicare for all situation, like if there's a Medicare, just kind of do away with private health insurance anyway.
Yeah. What I think is, again, I'm fine with a private option, but I think naturally the market would say that it won't exist. Because it'd be like, well, there's no service I can get here that is better. I'm kind of just doing it to rest on my laurels about private healthcare. Like, I don't know. It wouldn't really make sense. So, there's no ethical argument that I think anyone can make to privatize anything that is related to healthcare. Ethics we should determine what is public and what is private based on ethics. Is it ethical to make McDonald's public? Probably not. Right. But is it ethical to privatize healthcare? No, because then you're incentivizing drawing out care and making extra expenses. Just kind of like a like you go to a mechanic and they go like, well, you could fix this, and this, and you don't necessarily need to fix it. It's incentivizing that sort of thing, and it's I don't know, it doesn't work.
No, I agree, and I just disgusted over the fact that the healthcare system is treated like a business on how can we make the most money off of people suffering. And that does it really makes me actually angry, and it goes against my principles as being pro liberty also, because like part of living your life freely also entails being healthy.
I agree. I've made this exact same argument.
Oh, really? Very cool. Yeah, so like if you're gonna fucking squeeze the population dry for healthcare, that's an infringement of people's individual liberty, in my opinion.
I agree, and I think it's wild to say that the only way to guarantee more liberty is to have the government in charge of something like this. But if you think about it, the government is us, and we are in control of that. We are not in control of a corporation. That is one individual, and hospitals are corporate entities. Yeah, and I think as long as you are like, I would rather them not be looking at our text and shit. I'm not a terrorist, but the Patriot Act to me is a complete overstep of our civil liberties and stuff like that. So like, there's a lot of overlap between anyone that is for liberty and that is also a left leaning person. And I don't think it's a far bridge, and I hope you can get there. Whether or not
absolutely,
I don't know. Where do you think the next I guess what's kind of keeping you from saying like I'm comfortably left? Like, is there like a big issue that you're just like, it's hard to get over the hump, and then we can finish up our conversation?
It's kind of like it's kind of like the thing is, I guess maybe on a political spectrum I would be just like a liberal, but I'm not. The thing is, I'm not a leftist because I'm not really like for socialism. But I don't know. I'm kind of comfortable calling myself only for right now because I kind of have some opinions that fall a little more on the right and some that fall a little more on the left. For me, the most right-leaning position I hold is that I'm pro-life. However, my solution for fixing that issue is probably more aligned with the left. So where a conservative would probably be in favor of outlawing abortion, I would not be in favor of that, because all that would happen then is women would continue to get abortions in unsafe ways, where I think the best way to stop abortion is to provide good sex education and provide easy to access, or maybe even free contraceptives Because I mean, it sounds basic, but there are plenty of studies that show when women are provided, and I mean, I don't know why it has to just be women; it could be anyone. But
Wow, and you even
when
corrected yourself. You're doing
there you
well.
go.
I gotta
Thank
say,
you,
you were.
thank you. Yeah, I'm getting very woke now.
Yeah. Uh,
No, but it's
Seriously though, I do want to commend that. No, that's a good thing. You're thinking about this kind of shit, and like that is I'm not making a joke. That is genuinely productive in the way that you thought about that. That is a good policy to hold. That is very close to Destiny. I'm assuming you're familiar with Destiny. He
of
is
course.
he is anti-abortion but pro-choice, and so it's the same thing. It's just
Mm.
it's. I agree with you on education. I think that needs to continue. And
Mhm.
sadly for you, being someone who has conservative leaning still, I think you have to vote for left leaning people because they're the only ones that fund education. So
Right. Yeah,
so
it's weird, and that's the thing is, see, even from a pro-life standpoint, it makes way more sense to support Medicare for all because that would provide contraceptives for people at
yeah,
no expense, which studies have shown countless times that reduces unplanned pregnancies, which then reduces abortion. So,
absolutely.
uh, my I saw someone say something in the chat just to clarify. My being against abortion does not have anything to do with religious belief.
Hmm.
Even when I still considered myself religious, I didn't base my opinion on abortion on religion. I think that that's always a horrible way to form an argument because all it takes is for the person to be like, "Well, I don't believe in that religion," and then it's like, "Uh-oh, now what?"
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And someone also made a good point that nobody is pro-abortion.
right.
It's more just pro the ability to get one if you
And
need it.
I actually will publicly correct myself too because I've made the mistake of choice people as pro-abortion, and I
Yeah.
understand though that these people aren't like, yeah, everyone should just get an abortion when they're pregnant kind of thing, but like they're much more just they're in favor of it being available as an option.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't want to try to make that illegal for multiple reasons is also just abortion is it's very much like a philosophical debate.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it's it's a nuanced subject for sure. I consider myself pro-life also just because for me personally, like having children, it kind of has made me see the beauty in like unborn babies and everything. And I
Sure.
don't know, it's definitely a nuanced subject,
It's
but I'm
definitely
not opposed to it.
feelsy, but I think a lot of people
It is a little feelsy.
can actually I think we can wrap your head around the concept of the feels of it because yeah, I get it. It's the idea of this human potential that you are not allowing to grow is a compelling argument. It's not one that I find fixes my issue with anti-abortion, but I definitely understand why on a personal level one might not want to go through with that. So
Right. And almost for me being anti, like I think I can debate a pro-choice position pretty decently, but I'm also that's why I don't want to legislate it. I would
yeah,
rather try to change it on an individual basis. I mean, even my dad, who is really religious, has told me that he doesn't think outlawing abortion is the right move. It really needs to change on an
yeah.
individual level, and it's because it's such a nuanced and sort of philosophical thing.
And last point before you can totally head out. I do think also that you would see fewer abortions if you were able to help people on an economic level through raising wages and making sure that they
Mhm.
have access to healthcare and redistributing wealth from billionaires and making sure that at least you don't have to like cut people checks, but just make sure that you're investing in education, maybe giving people opportunities for free college to a certain extent, making sure that people have access to housing and food if they need it. Like
Right.
our base bottom should be you have simple lodging, you have access to somewhere to clean yourself, probably internet and phone at this point, even if it's just basic shit, just to be able to give you the opportunity to exist in the way that America runs from now. And
Mhm.
not to incentivize living that way, just to say like, look, your worst case scenario, you're safe and we want you to succeed. It's up to you to succeed, but we want you to succeed, and here's the tools to do so. And I think that's the
Right.
ideal situation. But this is a great
I agree.
conversation, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad that I was
Yeah.
feel like this was a much more productive discussion than our first.
Yeah, feel free to come back anytime. I'll probably ask in the future. I definitely want to get into probably around election time to see where you end up, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. Hit me up. You have my Discord. Hit me up if you ever want.
Absolutely.
I'm always down for a conversation.
Yeah, sounds fun, man. All right, have a good night. Enjoy the young one and the one to come.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Yeah, take it easy.
See ya.
Well, chat, I think we had a really good discussion. How do you guys like that shit?